Wastwater in the Lake District is England's deepest lake. Its sheer black screes carving a mirror dark places on Earth possess. Do you know the fairy pools on the Isle of Skye form crystal blue cascades over ancient volcanic bedrock and were once thought to be portals to the spirit world? Wastwater is England's deepest lake, plunging to roughly 79 meters beneath dramatic scree slopes and forming one of the country's rare, ink-dark ribbon lakes. Do you know Wastwater's black, glassy surface absorbs light so deeply it often appears almost like a sheet of polished onyx? Glacial action carved this narrow basin during the last ice age, leaving cliffs called the screes that fall almost vertically into the water. Those screes, tumbling from wind rig and U-barrow, create a cinematic edge that few lakes possess. Beneath that surface, cold, oxygen-poor depths preserve ancient sediments that scientists read like tea capsules of Britain's climate. Anglers and divers describe an eerie stillness where sunlight barely penetrates and submerged boulders loom like ruined fortresses. From the shore, the hulking silhouette of Skye Pike rises, England's highest peak, funneling streams and snowmelt into this narrow ribbon of water. Hikers crossing the ridges tell of sudden, vertiginous views down into the lake that can stop even seasoned walkers in their tracks. Local lore speaks of vanished shepherds and whispered spirits, stories born from the lake's solemn looks and remote Wasdale Valley. As you descend the valley, the sight of sheer screes meeting dark water explains why Wastwater keeps surprising every visitor. Photographers chase the rare light that paints the surface in steel blues and sudden bruised purples at dusk. At night, far from tamed lights, the Milky Way unrolls above and faintly reflects on the lake's deep, secret surface. Wastwater may be diminutive on a map, but every contour tells a geological thriller that began thousands of years ago. Stay with us as we climb those ridges, peer into the depths, and reveal the stories carved into England's deepest lake. The Seven Sisters Cliffs are chalk giants carved by ancient seas. Their stark white faces plunge into the English Channel like frozen waves. Walk their ridge lines, and you stand on fossilized seabeds that hold secrets of prehistoric plankton. Do you know the cliffs are composed almost entirely of coccoliths, microscopic shells that built their brilliance over millions of years? Erosion constantly redraws their outline, sending small avalanches of chalk into the sea. Each collapse is a slow-motion metamorphosis, exposing fossil layers and reshaping the coastline overnight. From the clifftop, you can trace a white ribbon stretching east toward Beachy Head and west toward Burling Gap. Low tides reveal chalk platforms peppered with marine life, while seabirds nest in hidden ledges out of sight for most visitors. Local guides point out the faint lines of old sea levels engraved into the white face like geological handwriting. On stormy days, the channel hammers the base and the cliffs groan, an audible reminder of nature's patience and power. Artists and poets have long been drawn to this liminal edge, where land becomes sea and light refracts off white chalk like a painter's palette. Yet beyond the beauty lies vulnerability, with rising seas and human footsteps accelerating the slow loss of this iconic shoreline. Conservation efforts balance public access and protection, using timed paths and education to keep people away from dangerous edges. Researchers monitor cliff retreat with drones and lasers, turning ancient collapse into precise science. The Seven Sisters also weave into the nation's cultural story, appearing in films, paintings, and folklore as a symbol of England's exposed edge. Follow a chalk path down to a pebble beach, and you trace the exact spot where tourists, soldiers, and Mahdists have left footprints across centuries. The Lake District holds England's highest peak, Skye Pike, and houses the country's largest natural lake, Windermere, creating one of the densest clusters of upland lakes and peaks outside Scandinavia. Do you know that many of the small tarns and ribbon lakes like Grasmere and Ullswater are direct scars of Ice Age glaciers that still define routes and weather patterns across the fells? From the polished graphite of Borrowdale's crags to the peat-dark waters of Thirlmere, each hollow tells a chapter of glacial movement and human settlement. Walkers following the ridgelines from Scafell Pike to Helvellyn Pass, ancient stone walls and shepherd shelters that link one valley to the next like stitches across a living quilt. Windermere's long, sinuous shore draws steamers and poets alike. Yet just a few miles north, Keswick offers the quieter Derwentwater, with its islands and dash of mountain light. The artist William Wordsworth found Gressmere's mirror-like lake and the humble dove cottage so stirring that his verses reshaped how Britain imagined its own wild places. Walking from valley to valley, you can sense how farming, mining for slate, and the rise of tourism have each left a fingerprint on the same slopes. Conservation efforts now knit together national park status, local community trusts, and refolding projects to protect both the scenery and the livelihoods that sustain it. To understand the Lake District is to trace every hamlet, fell and lake as part of a living network that once inspired a literary revolution and now faces 21st century challenges. And when visitors depart westward or eastward, the Lake District's roads and railways thread into neighboring landscapes, becks flowing toward the dales or coastal marshes, so the story continues beyond any single valley. Exploring its lakes is therefore not an endpoint, but a passage into an interconnected tapestry of geology, memory, and community that we'll follow next. The Isles of Scilly sit bathed in some of the warmest sea temperatures in the British Isles, creating turquoise, almost tropical waters rarely found this far north. Do you know the Isles of Scilly sustain subtropical gardens where palm trees and early flowering magnolias thrive, thanks to the Gulf Stream's gentle influence? Walk across St. Mary's ancient headlands, and you can still find traces of Bronze Age field systems that suggest people farmed here when sea levels were lower. Beneath the waves, diver-forgotten timbers and glittering cargoes make the Scillies one of Europe's richest underwater archaeological landscapes. Fishermen and botanists alike treasure the islands for their unique harvests, from early tender salad crops to rare coastal orchids clinging to sheltered gullies. In spring, the islands explode with color as daffodils and camellias bloom weeks before they do on the mainland. From here, the story arcs back to the Cornish mainland, where similar winds and tides sculpt cliffs that continue the Isles' maritime saga. But the Scillys keep a secret intimacy, a small world ecosystem and a history condensed onto a handful of isles, ready to reveal surprises to anyone willing to cross the short, changeable sea. Walk the lanes, and you'll meet stories of marine salvage, of gardens saved from winds by stone walls, and of families who have kept the island traditions alive for generations. Boatmen still read the swell the way their ancestors did, guiding small vessels through channels that change with every storm. The Isles of Scilly are also an annual magnet for birdwatchers who come hoping to glimpse vagrants blown off course and a species that rarely appear on the British mainland. Each rare sighting becomes a communal event, recorded in hand-scrawled notebooks and feverish online posts that link this tiny archipelago to a global network of naturalists. A chain of crystalline pools carved into pale schist on the Isle of Skye holds water so clear you can count the stones 10 feet beneath the surface. Do you know that the fairy pools get their glassy aquamarine color from finely ground rock flour swept down from the Cuillin ridges? The water tumbles through a sequence of bowls and channels, forming small waterfalls that change character with every season. Walk with a slow eye, and you'll notice how each plunge pool has its own personality. Local legend insists these tarns were favored gatherings for the scythe, the mischievous spirits of Scottish folklore, and that offerings once floated on their surface, hikers still leave small stones or sprigs of heather, a salient conversation between the modern visitor and centuries-old belief. The path from Glen Brittle hugs the River Brittle, whose icy flow feeds the pools and whispers of the glaciated past that sculpted this land. Basalt outcrops and metamorphic beds frame the water's edges, telling a geological story older than most nations. In winter, the pools are rimed with hoarfrost, and clouds drift low, turning the blue into pewter and the falls into sheets of suspended silver. On bright days, sunlight penetrates the water and casts an almost tropical turquoise that surprises even seasoned walkers. Brave swimmers test the temperature, finding an instant, sharp cold that wakes the senses and lingers as a story afterward. Photographers chase reflections and the way light slices between birch trunks, trying to bottle a quality that evaporates with the teeth of clouds. The sound here is crucial. The slap of water on stone, the sigh of wind over moorland, the distant clatter of sheep, forming a natural score. That sound leads you on, along a ridge and toward the looming Cuillin, where the landscape changes from ribboned pools to jagged summits. From the last cascade of faint track climbs, promising sharper views and linking the intimacy of the pools to the island's dramatic backbone. Walk that track, and you'll understand why Skye's small wonders are bound to its great ones, each feeding the next in shape and the story pauses. Ben Nevis rises above the Scottish Highlands as Britain's highest peak, capped by an ancient glacier-carved summit. Do you know Ben Nevis hides one of the UK's only subarctic summit climates, where Arctic plants survive? Mist clings to its jagged ridges, and a weather station near the top records storms that can rival mountaintops far to the north. Explorers and botanists have found rare alpine flowers and mosses clinging to stone ledges that seem impossible for life to hold. Beneath that summit lies a hidden natural amphitheater, a collapsed volcano's caldera transformed by ice into dramatic cliffs and quarries. Local legend speaks of ghostly lights and vanished shepherds, but scientists point to temperature inversions and mirages that play tricks on the eyes. The mountain's southern approach threads ancient quarries, ruined forts, and a landscape shaped by centuries of human industry. Old maps mark mining levels where sand stefanite were wrested from the earth, leaving scars that now shelter rare lichens. In winter, avalanches and blizzards can turn the paths into lethal corridors, yet every summer, hikers trace the same worn stone track to stand above Britain. Guides will tell you the summit cairn hides wartime relics and survey markers that map out centuries of changing borders and measurements. From Fort William below, Ben Nevis dominates the skyline and draws climbers, scientists, and storytellers with equal force. Cross its ridges, and you move from soft peatlands to brittle scree, each step a different chapter of geological time. Few places in the UK combine botanical rarity, geological drama, and human history in a single ascent like Ben Nevis. Keep watching, and we'll trace the mountain's secret waterways, its frozen caves, and the surprising wildlife that survives where few expect life. Its rivers feed hidden lochs that glow green in late summer. The white cliffs of Dover are made from chalk formed by millions of microscopic sea creatures and glow so brightly they served as navigational beacons for sailors for centuries. Do you know the white cliffs of Dover contain bands of flint that reveal a hidden record of prehistoric climate change stretching back tens of millions of years? Standing over 350 feet in places, the cliffs form a sheer line that has marked the edge of England for millennia. From their chalky face, streaked with black flint, you can read a natural barcode of ancient seas and sudden environmental shifts. Waves have carved caves and arches at the base, and seabird colonies nest in ledges invisible from the road above. Tiny fossils embedded in the stone are the silent signatures of plankton blooms that once turned the ancient oceans white. During wartime, the cliffs were painted onto maps and myth alike, a symbol as much geological as cultural. Walk the clifftop, and the land rolls away into fields and wartime memorials that link geology to human history. Those paths then lead inland toward chalk downs and hedgerows that have supported farming communities for generations. Folklore ties the cliffs to legends, to smuggling tales, and to lines of verse that made them a national emblem. Conservation groups stage clifftop surveys and community initiatives to involve residents in protecting this fragile edge. As sea levels change, the White Cliffs remain on a front line for understanding coastal resilience across Britain and beyond. Stay with us as we trace the coastline from these luminous faces to the hidden coves and communities that depend on them. Brecon Beacons National Park holds one of the few international dark sky reserves in Britain, where the Milky Way rises like a luminous river above peat-streaked moorland. Do you know Brecon Beacons hides vast limestone caverns and subterranean rivers? Places like Don Ir Ogoth that swallow daylight and keep secrets older than villages? By day, its rounded ridges, crowned by penny fawn, rule the southern skyline and were sculpted by Ice Age glaciers into striking combes and ridgelines. The park's peat bogs and heather moor create rare habitats that sustain species from mountain birds to delicate upland plants. Lower slopes funnel rain into hidden waterfalls and cave systems where ancient bones and Bronze Age cairns whisper of human passage. Walkers cross the Beacon's Way and stumble from panoramic ridgelines into sheltered valleys where Welsh rivers thread mossy stone. Here, red kites wheel high after reintroduction programs, and scarce butterflies and orchids cling to the margins of grazing commons. Livestock and tradition shape the landscape. Sheepfolds and dry stone walls, marking commons that have been grazed for millennia. Photographers chase light along hidden reservoirs and tidal streams, finding compositions where ancient geology meets everyday farming life. And when night falls, guided stargazers gather on hilltops, learning to read constellations over a landscape that retains its dark, deep, and peculiar rhythms. Brecon Beacons is less a single place than a series of connected rooms in Britain's wild house, each one offering an intimate, sometimes unsettling, surprise. Conservation efforts balance tourism with fragile ecosystems, inviting visitors to tread softly and learn the park's quietly radical rules. Crossing from moor to keom to cliff, the narrative of Brecon Beacons extends outward, beckoning travelers toward Wales' other wild chapters. Durdle Door is one of the few natural limestone arches in the world, formed by collapsing sea caves on a continuously retreating stretch of coastline, its shape a rare record of dynamic geology and relentless erosion. Do you know Durdle Door sits on the Jurassic Coast, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, where nearly 185 million years of Earth's history lies exposed in the cliffs and pebbles below? The arch rises directly from turquoise water off Dorset, a stark curve of Purbeck limestone that frames the sea like a stone window. Waves relentlessly undercut that limestone, slowly widening caves and promising that one day the arch itself will collapse into the surf, rewriting the shoreline. Shingles and sheltered coves near the arch regularly yield ammonites and fossilized shells, tiny time capsules that connect the present beach to ancient seas. The same rock band that sculpts Durdle Door carves Lulworth Cove and Stairhole nearby, so each inlet becomes a linked chapter in a single geological story. Local legends claim giants or mermaids carved the doorway, but the real sculptor is sediment, sea, and the patient arithmetic of millions of waves. We will trace those equations along cliffs and coves, reading fossil clues and the quiet science that keeps Durdle Door both monument and fragile processes. Storms can rearrange the coast overnight, and tiny grains of sand, repeated endlessly, are the craftsmen that shape Britain's most photographed natural door. When sunlight slants low, the limestone glows honey gold, and the sea slips through the arch like a slow, luminous tide, a moment photographers chase and fates try to name. Stay with us as we walk those paths, listen to the stones, and discover how Durdle Door connects past, present, and the continuing future of the Jurassic Coast. Loch Lomond is the largest freshwater loch in Great Britain by surface area, a vast mirror that frames mountains and forests. Do you know that Loch Lomond alone cradles nearly 30 islands, many carrying ancient burial sites, strange place names, and their own ghost stories? Beyond its islands, the Trossachs fold into sheltered glens, where remnants of ancient Caledonian pine and Atlantic oak survive in miraculous pockets. Those woodlands host lichens, mosses, and insects, more typically found on far-flung Atlantic coasts, a living patchwork rarely seen elsewhere. Ben Lomond rises on the eastern shore as a Monroe you can climb in a single day, yet its summit opens to views that feel wildly remote. Hikers trade lochside beaches and mountain ridges in hours, witnessing coastal, forest, and alpine species change with each step. Local fishermen and poets have long traded stories of a shoreline that shifts with seasons and light, where mist births legends. Some islands, like Inchcaidioch and Inchmurine, hide Bronze Age graves and ruined chapels that tie present paths to prehistoric hands. As you move from lochside villages into higher ridges, the sense of discovery grows. Each bend promises an unexpected view or secret ruin. What seems like a small national park on a map reveals itself as a compressed version of Scotland's wild diversity, stitched with stories. In the next section, we'll follow a path from the loch's calm waters up to the stony shoulders of Ben Lomond and into the hidden oak glens that hold the oldest living narratives. Prepare to meet places where nature and human memory overlap so closely that a single stone wall can tell centuries of change. Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh is one of the world's rare urban extinct volcanoes that rises sharply above a capital city, its craggy summit formed by ancient lava flows and glacial scouring. Do you know Arthur's Seat conceals remnants of a Bronze Age hill fort and pockets of Arctic alpine plants that survive here against the odds? From the slopes of Holyrood Park, the city unfolds as if Edinburgh was built to submit to the hill's dramatic silhouette. Walkers often follow yawning quarry scars toward the Salisbury Crags, where stone quarried here helped raise the old town, and the Georgian terraces beyond. At dawn, the summit lines up the Royal Mile, the Palace of Holyrood House, and the shimmering estuary of the Firth of Forth in one impossible panorama. In a single sweep, your eyes can find volcanic plugs, medieval rooftops, and the glass of modern bridges, a rare geological and urban mashup. Geologists prize Arthur's Seat because its layers are a living classroom of volcanic dikes and sedimentary beds exposed in stark cliffs. Hikers love it because narrow paths spill into hidden hollows where orchids, thrift, and other tenacious plants cling to thin soils. Few visitors notice the subtle microclimates on different faces of the hill that let cold-adapted species survive far from the highlands. Few guides tell how 18th century quarrymen blasted ragstone that later became the skeleton of Edinburgh's stony streets. Legends stick too. Some link the name to King Arthur, but others point to Gaelic origins and vanished place names older than the city. The summit weather can change by the minute, folding fog into the city or unveiling views that feel stolen from a different country. From here, you can trace a natural highway of stone and sea that connects Arthur's Seat to the basalt ridges of the Firth and the distant Pentlands. That line of sight explains why generations have stood on this hill to map the land, defend the city, and claim it as a symbol of Edinburgh. Climb slowly and listen. The wind seems to carry echoes of shepherds, soldiers, and Petes who found words on these slopes. Then imagine how those same rocks made the bones of the city below, an intimate link between geology, industry, and culture. By the time you step down toward Holyrood Park, you begin to understand why Arthur's Seat is not just a viewpoint, but a living chapter in Scotland's story. And if you turn west, the line of the city leads you toward Calton Hill and onward, as if the landscape itself insists you keep looking. The Northumberland coast shelters the Farne Islands, where thousands of seabirds and one of England's most concentrated grey seal colonies congregate each summer. Do you know that Lindisfarne, the tidal holy island on this same coast, becomes an island twice a day and cradled the creation of the Lindisfarne Gospels, one of Europe's earliest illuminated manuscripts? From the shingle and wide sands near Beadnell to the marshes of Druridge, This coastline preserves habitats rarely left uninterrupted by modern development. Walkers can follow paths that thread past ruined fortresses like Dunstanburgh and the honey-colored battlements of Bamburgh, where sea-swept cliffs meet ancient stone. Bamburgh Castle stands like a ship on the shore, its silhouette used for centuries to signal power and refuge to anyone approaching from the North Sea. Do you know that some stretches of the Northumberland shore reveal medieval fishermen's huts and remnants of vanished villages when storms strip back the sand? The Farne Islands link the human history on the mainland to wilderness at sea, where puffins, guillemots, and kittiwakes fill the air in summer columns. Small boats trace narrow lanes through seals and rock stacks, offering one of the rare chances in Britain to watch colonies from close within their natural rhythms. Do you know that the coastline's combination of wildlife, history, and shifting tides makes it one of Britain's most cinematic but least crowded coastal experiences? To walk the Northumberland coast is to move through layers of time. Seabird colonies, nesting above Viking-age priory ruins and castles, watching over ancient sea routes. Each bay seems to hand you to the next, from a puffin cliff to a tidal shrine to a castle-laden shore. And with every step, the coast reveals a hidden chapter. From the mist-filled peaks of the Scottish Highlands to the chalky cliffs that guard southern shores, the landscapes here read like pages from a living atlas. Every village green, every ruined abbey, and every bustling city street carries stories that link past and present in ways that still surprise even those who think they know these islands. We traced rivers from the Lake District into market towns that remember Viking traders, and climbed from the honeyed stone of the Cotswolds into the Roman baths of Bath. We crossed from the curved terraces of Welsh slate to the volcanic shock of the Giant's Causeway, feeling the geological conversations that shaped them both. London stitched those threads together. A metropolis that borrows cathedral domes, Victorian engineering, and global flavors to keep reinventing itself. From Oxford's dreaming spires to Yorkshire's medieval walls, knowledge, craft, and resilience echoed across centuries and landscapes. On the Isle of Scilly and along Snowdonia's ridges, the wildness insists on a different clock. Yet even there, the handprints of history, kinship, legends, and industry are unmistakable. And beneath it all, stones like Stonehenge and the Neolithic sites of Orkney whisper of people who shaped this place long before nations were named. What remains is not a collection of postcard views, but a living palimpsest where nature and human stories overwrite and illuminate each other. As you leave these islands in your mind, you'll carry not just images but the sense that every lane, log, and skyline has a secret to tell if you take the time to listen.